You are now listening to the Key Roger W. Jones Executive Leaders Podcast Series. Today's episode features Matthew Alessandrino and Jay Lerner. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button for access to all of Key's online resources, including this podcast series.
Matt, we are so happy for you, my friend. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
We so wish we could make this happen in person this year, but I'm sure we'll have better plans for next year once things get back to normal. But we wanted to take a few minutes this morning, if we could, to just ask you a few questions. And as Bree said, this won't take very long, but just kind of get a feel for our winners, to talk to them a little bit about leadership. And one of the first things I wanted to ask you is there anyone out there that you have kind of used as a role model over the course of your career? And what can you tell us about them?
When I started in government, 30 years ago, 1991, I was assigned a mentor, Sam Holland. He just he took me under his wing and kind of showed me the ropes and told me that the big thing about being successful, especially in a government setting, is to work hard, honest, and grew up in a very regimented household. So the honesty and integrity portion wasn't a problem, but and the work ethic I think was already there. But the treating people correctly, whether it's someone in the office changing the toner cartridges or the head of the office. I mean, I think I recognize that everybody's important. Everybody has a role. To me, Sam taught me that. He lived that. I still speak with him. He retired a few years ago, and I still speak with him pretty often. And he's been a tremendous role model, not just in professionally, but also personally. A lot of things I used to make fun of him about his daughter have come home to roost for me. I've got that times 3 now, so he likes to laugh about that. But he certainly he taught me to focus on the important things at work, not to get too worried about the minutia, and make decisions. Especially as I started getting into management positions, make decisions. Take the personal side out of them and try to make them for the good of the office, but always focusing on the long term, because focusing just on the short term can have long-term ramifications. And so I think he was spot on, and I think that's kind of how I manage now.
What does excellence in leadership look like? If someone were to ask you to define that for them, what is it you would say?
Anybody can be a leader, and everybody's a leader in a certain way. So it's got nothing to do with your grade, your pay, your age, your position. It has to be, to me, giving people the tools and the resources to do their job, and then letting them do it. Hold them accountable. Sometimes letting people make mistakes is okay. To me, it means you're learning from them. A strong leader is someone who just really trusts his folks and his or her folks, and gives them an opportunity to make decisions and to lead, not just their projects, but their personal life, their work life, and any folks they're working with.
For all of us that are in leadership roles, we all make mistakes. And I wonder was there a time in your career where you could say that this was the toughest challenge or the toughest moment I've ever had? Kind of one of those crucibles. Have you ever had one of those? And if so, what was it?
Yeah. There's been some pretty tough decisions I've had to make. 2 come to mind. A few years ago, I had an opportunity to actually leave government, and thought real strong and hard about it. And financially, it would have been a really, really good idea. But I really love this job, and I think the group we've put together is just incredible. So that played a major role in it. It was going to involve a lot of travel, and having 3 teenage daughters certainly played a role. But it was it was a kind of a crossroads. But at the end of the day, I just love what I'm doing, and so that to me is more important than most anything. And the second one that comes to mind is some of the challenges we had during the financial crisis, and some decisions we made in what work to ignore, and that's tough to do when you want to please everyone. And So there was just so many bank fraud cases associated with the bank closings, and there's some real damage done to some of these small community banks throughout the country, and it was tough to turn down some of those cases. There were people that really wanted us to hold both customers and bankers accountable, and with a limited number of resources, we could only do what we could do, and so that was tough. I mean, you didn't want to say no to the agency that was referring it to us, or our law enforcement partners that were helping. We could jump in. So those are kind of two things that come to mind.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, the challenges in that regard have been tremendous. Let me shift over to Jay for a sec. Jay, what about you? Have you had a leadership hero, someone out there that you really kind of admired as a role model?
Yeah, the person that comes to mind, I used to work at the Department of Justice. I was in the criminal division there, worked as a prosecutor, and then worked on some policy issues. And the Deputy Assistant Attorney General for the criminal division that I worked with was a bit of a role model for me, just in terms of how she worked with others, led different groups, her dedication, hard work, and then also keeping an eye on the long term, as Matt had said, of what the overall policy goals were for the organization and ways to serve the public, really keeping that in mind. And she worked long hours and taught me that sort of dedication and commitment to the job, and really government service is serving the American people. And that has carried with me over many years and through different career path and options that I've had over the years.
And is that how you would define excellence in leadership? Is it about the public service?
I do think, yeah, in the government, I've been in the working for the government almost 29 years now, and I've had other options like Matt, and really have stuck with it for that reason, which is serving the American public. And it's more than the salary or dollar amounts, but really doing something good and trying to contribute to the country, to the well-being of others, and serving the public. So, yes.
As both of you know, the Key program works with federal leaders. I mean, that's all we do. And we graduated a cohort last week from OMB. We graduated an open enrollment cohort yesterday. It had about 17 people in it from about 12 different agencies. And the passion that the two of you represent for leading in the public service, and we call it delivering democracy, delivering leadership, or delivering civilization every day. And it's just such a joy to be able to hear the view, kind of what your perspectives are. We're lucky we get to interview a bunch of people over the next few days to talk about this. And Jay, let me just hit one more question for you before I go back to
Sure.
Matt, and that is that Crucible question. All of us have that moment that kind of redefines us as a leader. What would you share as your biggest Crucible moment?
I think I'm not sure there's one particular moment, but I think that we all have certain setbacks in our career, jobs that we hope we would have been selected for, or things that didn't quite work out the way we had hoped. And I think it's the resiliency that you come back from those instances to keep being persistent and persevere through the ups and downs of anyone's career. And I feel fortunate that I've had those events, because I think you learn from them and you grow stronger. That which does not kill you makes you stronger. And I think the resiliency and growth that you learn from those experiences really helps you throughout. And like I said, I feel like I've been able to overcome those setbacks. And I think most good leaders can reflect on those experiences and take the positive and view them as rewarding, and to be able to move on to bigger and better things as you continue to grow and learn.
I love that perspective. In fact, one of the things I mentioned to the cohort that graduated yesterday was that I had learned a new word this week, or a new phrase, and it was matryoshka doll. I didn't know what a matryoshka doll was, but there's those nested dolls. You see them around the holidays a lot of times, and I talk about how we have that core of who we are, but every time we have an experience, good or bad, as we grow and develop, we just kind of nest on top of ourselves, and it's just such a beautiful, transformational thing for all of us. So thank you, Jay. One more question. Let me go back to Matt real quick, and then Jay, you're going to get to think about this because this is a tough question. Matt, question for you. So, the public service looks a lot different now. I mean, than it looked in previous years. And one of the things I know I talk to my grad students about is kind of the hybrid nature and working across government and with for-profits and nonprofits. If you had your crystal ball out, what would the future of public service look like to you, and what kind of challenges does that create for us as leaders?
I think if one thing this pandemic has shown us, it's this remote working arrangement is probably here to stay, at least in a certain aspects of it anyway. I've learned a great deal about these type of meetings, whether it be Zoom, Skype, Teams, you name it. And so I think this is tough for folks who are people persons, and that's me. So this is something that I think is going to be here for a while, or this is going to stick. And so we're dealing with that pretty regularly with all our supervisors and our managers to somehow use this and become more comfortable. It's really just a comfort thing more than anything. And so we have to use this type of medium right now to interview subjects and suspects in criminal investigations. We're doing legal proceedings, court legal proceedings using this medium. It's just incredible. So a part of me says, you watch some of these older TV shows and you're like, wow, how did they actually got it right? And as crazy as it's seen back in 1985, this is what we're dealing with now. So the big thing for me is we're making people do it. We're kind of helping them along, but you really do lose that interpersonal stuff that is those intangibles on body language and people's reactions. So it's a challenge. I'm excited for it in some respects. I've got 3 days orders, so anytime I have a problem, they just come over and show me what I'm doing wrong. And but it's something that and we saw a lot of it moving into this, where some of our newer case agents were coming out of college, and they'd ask me a question through text or something. I'm like, I'm 4 doors down. What are you doing? But now I get it. They're much more comfortable doing it, and so I think it's here to stay. And so but it's a challenge.
There's no doubt. In fact, I was doing a lecture for the Department of Transportation a couple of days ago, and it was for their senior executive conference, and we were talking about the state of the workforce. And one of the things that's out there, some of the data is suggesting, and this is data pre-COVID, so this is data that came out in December 2019, January 2020, and the data talks about Americans who are lonely. And the loneliest generation is actually Gen Zs, followed by millennials. It's not the Xers and the boomers. It's the young generation. And part of it is because, for all the advantages that the technological platforms bring us, there is a missing connection there with that human being. And I even see this in my grad classes with grad students who will admit, they'll say, you know what, when I'm sitting across from an old guy like you, Patrick, I'm struggling because it's hard. So yeah, I agree totally. It's amazing what we're seeing with that. Jay, what do you think? What would you say the future would be? What are you looking at?
Yeah, it's funny because I had the same impression, not to copy Matt's answer, but I think, building those relationships in an office and having a sense of identity and community around an organization is really critical. And I think it's very difficult, frankly, at whatever generation, it's very difficult to do remotely and virtually, or at least I think there's additional challenges with doing that. And building those relationships is important and increasingly challenging. I would add a couple of other things that I think that just the cyber skills, the computer skills are really the important goals and sort of strategy for the future, not only using virtual communications, but being able to communicate virtually and remotely and continue the operations of the organization. Another additional thought I would have is the work-life balance. And I think a lot of people, you mentioned loneliness. I think that's one aspect, but just having an office to go to creates a bit of separation between home and office, and that doesn't exist where we are all working from home. And I think it's important for all of our, psychology, psyche, emotional well-being is to be able to have that separation, to be able to disconnect at times and decompress. So those are some things I think related to the pandemic and the effects of that. I would say the other aspect long term for government public service is really a sense of accountability. And as Inspector General and working in the IG community for a while, I really think the oversight responsibilities that we have are increasingly significant and important in the democracy that we uphold. The pandemic response has put out trillions of dollars to help the economy, which is important, and maybe even more money going out. But it's really the oversight and the accountability around those funds and how they're spent and the programs that are built around that I think will impact the American government and the America that we know for quite a while, for a decade or more. I would think that's important to sort of keep in mind as sort of long-term strategy on how we maintain our government democracy.
I could not agree more. And the oversight, I mean, watching it in the last several years has just been it's been a fascinating, from a political science perspective, just watching the ever-changing environment, I guess, of oversight and how it's worked and not worked over time. But Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to do the nomination. Matt, we are so happy for you and cannot wait to get all of you all together with the other nominators and the other winners. And we'll do the virtual party this year, but the real party next year, I think that's the plan. Fantastic.
And
Anything
I also
else?
just wanted to echo your congratulations to Matt as well. I was really pleased and honored to be able to nominate him, and even more pleased and honored when he was selected by the committee. And so, congratulations to Matt, and thank you, Patrick, and your whole crew for supporting the effort. It's really important to recognize government leaders in my mind, and particularly for career achievement like Matt has done over the long haul. He has really developed this investigations group. He was the driving force, and he has been persistent throughout to keep it developing and growing from a relatively small group working small rudimentary administrative cases to really now working complex, sophisticated financial fraud criminal cases. And I just want to say thank you again to Matt for that development well before I became IG, but over the long haul, and really worth recognizing. So thank you both for all the contributions.
Oh, thank you, Jay. And Matt, I know we said this in your letter, and just so Jay knows as well, I sit in on the deliberations of the committee, and the people on that committee that make the final choice, it goes through two different levels. The second level are the committee of Napa fellows like Terry Gerton and some of the other folks. They're pretty prominent names, Mortimer Downey and others. And so many of the people on that committee knew of you or knew you and knew your work. And every single year, and I know that Jennifer and Bree and Lamont can attest to this, every single year, these races get tighter. And I think that the numbers in the votes, it's like, it ends up being like a difference of 0.0004 between the winner and the not winner. And the quality and the commitment of all the people that do this is just tremendous. And so it's a testament to you, Matt, your reputation, the work you've done, the service you've delivered. I can't say it better than Jay did. So thank you so much, and congratulations again.